Hello and welcome back to Mr. Excalibur. My name is Arthur, and today what we're looking at is a sword from the company TrueKatana. Now the interesting thing about TrueKatana, as well as some other companies that are very much like them, their katanas don't have the kind of model names that you might expect from a mass production company like Hanwei or Dragon King or any of the other big mass production makes. Instead, what they have are models that are named more after the fittings that are on the swords. And in this case, basically, it is they call it it's a T10 katana with Krane motifs, gold and Krane motifs. So that's the name of the video. The gold obviously isn't gold, it's brass. And the T10 blade, very nicely cut, very nicely. You guys will see that in the cutting footage. What I've done with the unboxing is more than me standing behind a table and kind of going through the motions. I thought it'd be kind of nice just to focus on a sword and take a look at how it was packed. This one was packed interesting. Wasn't expecting this, so. And so you guys are going to see that in just a minute here. One of the things that I wanted to focus on with this sword was the quality of the fittings, because that's kind of what sells these brands. The blades tend to be all very nice, and as you guys will see in the cutting footage, once again, cuts just fine. But really, it's the fittings and the various accoutrements that come with this that is supposed to be the selling point for this sword. So first of all, I'm not a representative of TrueKatana or any of the other distributors that you might find these. So I'm not being paid for this. I actually bought this one with my own money. And so just to give you an idea of what I have vested in this, and the answer is, well, however much I paid for this. I think this one costs just a shame, once you deal with taxes and shipping, a little over $300. So again, this falls into the the entry level katanas that I like to focus on this channel. And so, all right. So the next thing up is, of course, the unboxing. We've got absolutely no footage whatsoever of people actually using these, so there isn't anybody else who's done these, at least none who have done this particular model with these particular fittings. There are videos out there on YouTube of people who have tried and tested some of the blades from TrueKatana, but unfortunately, when you don't have a particular model you can focus on, like some of the other big makes, it's difficult to kind of collect some other people's opinions when these are what I call kind of semi-custom made swords. And the reason why I say semi is because when you buy these, what you're buying essentially is a preset selection of various fittings, and then they go and make it for you. It's not actually in stock. It's something that we can talk about here in a little bit later. So that is something that is an interesting feature of companies like this. So anyway, we've got the unboxing footage, we've got cutting, we've got the stats, and after that we'll do a nice wrap up. So all of that coming up next. Here we go. So this is the unboxing for the gold Krane design katana with a T10 blade from TrueKatana. As you guys saw here, the box that came to me had a long ways to go. All those different, I guess you could say, custom stickers all the way from China. It took about a month for it to get to me from the time that I ordered it, plus or minus. And the way it came is very similar to what we've seen in a couple other makes, namely Swords of Northshire, where you simply just have a form-fitted styrofoam container. There's no outside cardboard container. There's no imagery that's been stamped on. Nothing. So it's very simple, but the sword came to me in fine condition. You saw that it was wrapped in plastic, and then I pulled it out and took a look at a very nice, cleanly made sword.
The Kashira seemed to be very, very nicely cast. The Saya, as I will mention later on, had a few little issues with it, but overall the sword looked in very good condition, coming just right out of the box, or out of the styrofoam, so to speak. The Shinodomi pieces were nice and fixed in position. That's not always the case, so I mean it's important to kind of note that in this particular case. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind when looking at this. When looking at the Saya, it was obvious that it was fitted with horn pieces at the top and the bottom. Here's another plus. When I pulled the sword out of the Saya, it was thinly covered in a kind of a plastic sheath, holding in some oils, so they wouldn't necessarily soak into the Saya, but it kept the blade nice and lubricated, which was nice. This is actually the nice way of doing it. I've seen other companies that have used a very kind of waxy substance. This one was very nice. It's a very thin viscosity oil, so it keeps it nice and lubricated, and it also, comes off very easily when cleaning it. Now, this was something that I found very interesting. I found that the temper line of the sword to be accentuated quite a bit. I actually liked it. I liked how they did it. I didn't mind it so much. I was a little suspicious as to whether or not it possibly would have been kind of accentuated, possibly with some acid etching, but I wasn't really sure. I liked the aesthetic of it. This is a T10 blade, and if you've seen some of my videos already, you kind of know I will admit I'm a little biased toward them. I find them, especially at this price range, to be a good, solid steel to be using for these swords, especially at something that is an entry level. And you can see the castings of the tsuba here. The baki came really nice, a very nice cinched up fit. So some nice impressions right out of the box. This is the cutting footage that I did with this sword from TrueKatana. As I mentioned before, there's not a real fancy name for it. Instead, there's just this kind of designation based on the part selection that I made. And this one happens to be the gold Krane design with a T10 blade. It felt very nice. This is very much a standard size katana. The Saya had a very nice feel to it. I mean, it's a little loose, but it had a nice feel to it. But, as I've mentioned a couple times now, I do tend to have a bit of a bias when it comes to these T10 blades. The T10, I guess the makeup of it makes it a really kind of nice light metal. And this is a solid bodied katana. There's no fuller, there's no bogey on it. And yet it really feels quite nice. I've had a couple other swords that are of the standard length. I'm usually someone who likes a little bit longer of a nagasa, a blade, but this one does pretty well. I finally got myself a middle stand here. I've used it once before in another video, but I finally did away with that stupid ladder that I kept on whacking swords on, and this one proved to be pretty good for what I was doing. But just again with the handling, it was pretty nice. I do have to admit one problem though that I had with the design. The fushi, that kind of throat that fits just under that collar metal piece that fits just under the tsuba, it has a bit of a flange that goes a little bit over and outside the thickness of the ito wrap. And as a result, if I wasn't using gloves with this sword, it would probably actually start to irritate my hands. So one recommendation to TrueKatana may be to make the wood in the handle a little bit thicker, or maybe use a slightly thicker piece of ito wrap. Don't know. As you guys are seeing here, I mean, this thing cuts really nicely. The interesting thing about T10, I've had this explained to me before about the whole, actual thickness of the blade, the actual blade geometry, It's not a particularly razor sharp sword, as you guys, I should say, didn't see in the unboxing footage. I didn't bother to go through the paper test because it didn't do really well with it. And however, here you guys are seeing that it really is cutting quite well. I do have to admit, though, I am using the for the most part, the easier to cut milk bottles, but I have to admit, this sword was a lot of fun to cut with. It moved quite nicely. Again, I'm having to kind of reach a little bit more because I'm used to a slightly longer blade. I suppose that's a little leftover from, still from using European swords that tend to be lighter. This one, I really got a good cut out of it. I cut the top off, then I got another ring off, and it was really nice. So overall, the cutting experience with this sword was really nice. I know it's a bit of a subjective term. I wish I had some kind of rating system, but I mean, this one was I really enjoyed. So I can't really, not a whole lot of criticism when handling this and cutting. So good marks on that.
TrueKatana is a company that is part of a growing movement, I think, in Japanese style katanas that are made in China. Now, I may be, a couple years behind the 8 ball here. I know these companies have actually been around for a while, but they are the ones who are thriving right now, currently. And it's the kind of the same old makes that are suffering. If you look at some of the big distributors, at least as of this date, whenever this video comes out, this video was actually published towards the end of the summer of 2020. When I actually managed to get it published on YouTube, I don't know, but that's when I actually took this footage and bought this, so that's kind of a reference point. So in our current state, with economics being the way they are right now, we're seeing a lot of the big distributors run out of a lot of the mass-produced models, stuff like Hanwei. I tried to find another big make like Hanwei, but they're kind of the biggest one, but it's a good example. Versus companies like this, where in a decent amount of time, now knowing you're not necessarily going to get it the very next week, but you might get it in a month. And that is actually pretty good time for a semi-custom made outfit. Now, what I mean by semi-custom made, when you look on these websites, and unfortunately I don't have a neat little screencast to show you, but the website for TrueKatana is in the comments down below, so you guys can take a look at that. TrueKatana is one of those websites where essentially what you do is you buy a pre-made set of colors and fittings, and then they go and assemble it for you. This is similar with the company Handmade, which I've done a video previous on. This is something that's becoming more and more common in the katana market, at least those that are coming out of China. This one came with a very nice T10 blade. It did wonderfully well. I was really impressed with it. It was a nice light katana. This is a very, very light sword. but I didn't put it through a lot of heavy stuff because, quite honestly, I am probably going to sell this on my eBay account. If you guys have seen that on some of my other videos, you'll see it down below here. Who knows, by the time this video comes out, this thing may already be gone. But it's not that I don't like it. That primarily the purpose I buy a lot of these is to buy them, review them, and then, you know, turn around and sell them back out on eBay. So, but one of the things I really liked about it was the blade. The blade really is quite nice. Has a very even grind. The hara, the hamon, the temper line is very nicely defined. I'm not, I'll say this, I'm not entirely sure that they didn't go back and kind of re-etch this. But as you guys, you know, I'm sure you probably can, it's so well defined, you guys can probably really see it right there on the camera. And I know you guys saw it on the unboxing footage. So, I mean, it really is actually quite nice. So, the one downside of this design I found was actually a couple things. One, I found the brass casting of the tsuba and the fushi. Apparently for a while I've been getting those confused. That's the fushi, that's just the kashira. Is a little on the sloppy side. You can see some casting marks where the casting really wasn't quite even. The design is nice. It's got this nice crane design on the top and the bottom of the tsuba. It's a very simple tsuba, which is actually I kind of like. I really like the fit of the habaki here. It really was nice and tight. So no seams, no nothing. So it's a very, very clean fit. So I liked that. This saya also had a few issues in that, and I know the camera's not going to pick this up, so I guess you guys are just going to have to take my word for it. When I look closely at the saya itself, there's quite a few dings and dents in the wood underneath, and what it looks like they did was, and they did a pretty good job of doing it, and that is lacquering over it. It's got a nice horn tip here, and a nice horn tip at the throat of the saya. The shiridomi pieces on either side of the saya plug are nice and firmly fit in. They came with a nice sageo cord. So all the kind of the furniture and all the pieces really actually came very nicely put together. It fits very nicely into the saya. There's no jamming or anything. It's a little on the loose side. I mean, if I can shake this loose, yeah, I mean, it comes loose, but as opposed to a saya that's too tight, you can always put little bamboo or very, very thin wood shims in the top of the saya here to tighten that up. That's not a big issue. I'm not a big problem with that. There's virtually no saya rattle, so that's another good thing. I mean, to have it fit that well and for there to be no saya rattle, that's another good bonus. The tsuka ito was a little on the loose side. I can move the knots around just a little bit, but other than that, they're pretty nice and tight. They put on either an imitation or real silk tsuka ito, which I actually like. It's a nice comfort to the hand. I still use gloves like you saw in the testing, but it's very comfortable. And so, I mean, overall, all the pieces of it are pretty nice. Like I said in the beginning, I paid just around $300 for it, and for that, and to have a nice T10 blade, it's a pretty good deal. So is it worth your money? Yeah, I'd say it's worth your money. Is it something I'd give a beginning student? Maybe. Something a little nicer for them to take to the dojo versus, you know, a beater, like something made out of 5160, something that doesn't have, you know, a temper line to it. They might not want to, you know, beat that up in their backyard. As you guys saw in the testing, I didn't do a lot of heavy testing with it. I really didn't want to. I really liked the blade. I really liked the look of it. I didn't intentionally hack through the cardboard, which tends to scratch up the blade. And I just kind of stuck to the milk bottles. And as you can saw, they filleted them pretty well. T10 is a really good steel for some of these entry-level swords because you get the benefit of a differentially hardened blade, but also with a steel that's not quite so fragile as 1095. What's interesting is that, as I mentioned before, sometimes 1095 and T10 are used interchangeably, but if it is in fact T10, then what they've done is they've added a little bit of tungsten into the material of the blade, and thus giving it a little bit of scratch resistance. It's one of the reasons why I've found across various makes, T10, they shine them up pretty good. The polish on the blades stay very nice, and they cut really nice. I found that the T10 blades, and when I mean across brands, we have, of course, this one that we're looking at today. I've seen them in Dragon King, Hanwei, Ryujin, and I'm sure I'm forgetting another. Oh, the Iron Tiger Forge, which is the brand out of Cult of Athena. All of those T10 blades all cut very nicely. So to have a sword at this price range with a nice T10 blade, always a pretty solid buy. Now, what I will say is that as far as the casting quality on some of the fittings, I've seen better. There are some other makes that are very similar to TrueKatana where they might be better. Now, it could be just this particular design that I picked. I don't know. But this one I found to be just a little bit on the bit of the sloppy side. So I think you probably could do better. But other than that, this was a very good deal. So yeah, I would recommend it. So if you're looking at TrueKatana, at least this particular model did very well. So I hope this has been informative for you. And of course, subscribe to the channel. And I love to see the comments of what you guys always type in down at the bottom. And of course, there'll be the links down below to see how to get one of these. And so best of luck with that. And we'll see you guys later. Bye for now.